Hey everybody, welcome back to Code 4 Cooking. I'm Jeff. Today, it's all gravy. No, seriously, I'm going to show you how to make great gravy. Here we go. My name is Jeff Antonenko. I was a paramedic for over 26 years. I did my bit for king and country, but it took its toll. Physically, emotionally, and mentally. One thing that could always bring me peace and calm, and that's cooking. Ask my partners. We ate well. Now I want to share that place with you. For my first responder and military family, I want to share my knowledge and experience of cooking, start to finish, with me, and hope you can find your peace and calm while cooking. And to anyone else just starting or in need of a person to cook with, from gathering and prepping our ingredients to cooking, and finally plating and tasting, let's help you find that peace and calm as well in cooking. So come on, cook with me. Okay guys, so Thanksgiving's upon us, and gravy is a major factor for most people. They want to have that nice, dark, rich gravy, thick, so it clings to the meat and all the everything, stuffing, the mashed potatoes, you name it, whatever you want to put the gravy on, you want to have gravy on it. You want to be able to have that with great flavor. Now, with great flavor comes great responsibility. I'm going to teach you how to make a roux. Now, a roux is very simply, it's a mixture of flour and a fat, and you cook the flour out of it, the taste of the flour out of it, and that becomes a thickener. Now, you can use different fats. I'm going to use butter. We're going to use flour, and it takes time to develop a good roux. You want to get the nice color for your gravy. Now, depends on what kind of gravy we're making. If this was for biscuits and gravy, we're going to want to have a blonde roux, which means we're going to have a white sauce to it. What we're looking for is a turkey gravy, so we want our roux to darken over time before we add any stock, and before we add anything to start the thickening process from there. Or, if you're looking for a beef gravy, you're going to let that roux go just a little bit further down the road, and you'll watch it change colors. You'll see it. It's going to go from a white of flour. It's going to kind of have the butter mixture to it, so it's going to be a little bit yellow. That's the cooking phase. And then you're going to see it start to darken. And what's going to happen is that it's going to go with... Sanja, I'm talking here, honey. Honey, it's okay. So what we want to do is we want to have this roux go to more of a peanut butter color. And the more you cook your roux down, the less you have of thickening power for your gravy. So a blonde roux is going to have the greatest thickening. You'll need to have a little more liquid. The darker roux for like a turkey, it's going to be a little bit lighter. It's still going to be able to be thickened up really well, and then you get into a beef, really that darker roast. Santa? That's enough. Oh, don't talk to me like that. Get down. Get down. Sorry, guys. I'm not going to stop this. I'm going to keep going. So, of course, the darker you want it for that, like that beef gravy, and that's what I'm going to have here. I'm going to do a little bit of a beef gravy, but I'm going to make it in a lighter stock. If you go beyond the peanut butter to more of that chocolatey goodness, now you're going into a deeper roux that you'd be using more for stews or an etouffee or jambalaya. What else you'll use it for? Anyway, the darker the roux, the less thickening power it has, but it also will bring out a little bit more of a robust flavor. We want a medium roux, so we're going to go with that tan. Now, your portioning size for your fat to your flour is a 1-to-1. So I've got a stick of butter here, and they were kind enough to label it, so it tells me how many teaspoons all the way across. So if you read this, 8 tablespoons, which is the whole stick, is a half a cup of butter. So We're only going to use 2 tablespoons. Now, what I'm making this for is less important as the volume of butter. Got my pan over here on the stove. I'm going to turn that on, get my butter starting to melt. And set my butter off to the side. Now I have my flour. Luckily enough, I have a measuring scoop. It says 2 tablespoons. So, slide it in. Shake off the excess. There we go, we have our 2 tablespoons. Now, cover this up so we can put it away. But before I do so, I'm just going to set that there so we have it when our butter melts. Whisk. As your butter is melting, we're going to take and start adding the flour, and you're going to need a whisk. You're going to be looking at kind of a constant motion, going around in a circular pattern or back and forth. Anything to keep the flour and the butter moving. If you let it sit for too long, you can let it sit for short periods of time. But if you let it sit too long, you'll end up burning it. But you want to keep that motion going so you're getting that darker color as you go. Now, why is this important? First off, burning anything is going to be bad. Second of all, though, we want to make sure our flour maintains that ability to really thicken up when we need it. Once we get to the point where we know that our roux is the color that we want, it's the thickness that we want, now we're going to start adding our liquid. Now at the back of the stove here, I've got some beef broth, and I have a ladle here. So when I'm ready to start thinning it out, I'll start spooning that beef broth into my roux. And you'll see it start to foam up and thicken up, and it just grabs at that liquid with no tomorrow and wants to just stay as thick as you can be. So you're going to be adding it fairly quickly, and you're not going to stop stirring. Okay? So that's where we're at. Our butter is melting, and that foamy goodness is that water coming out. But it's at a point where we can go ahead and add our flour. It doesn't have to be fancy, just sprinkle it in the pan. Now, if you were making a roux and you were concerned about the amount of flavor going into your gravy, before we added the flour, we could have added a whole bunch of seasonings to that flour. It's not going to change its binding capabilities and how thick the gravy is going to be, but you would add a little more kind of instant flavor to where you're going with your gravy. So as we come over here to the stove, you can see it's starting to do its magic. So this is that getting it out of clumps phase. And what we're doing right now, essentially, is cooking the flavor of the flour, because it's not the most palatable flavor you'd want to have in a gravy or a stew or what have you. You want to cook that flavor out. Hey, Tony. In the meantime, we're going to keep this stirring and watch our color change and get ready to start adding on to our broth, and we'll start making that into our gravy. You see, as the foaming starts going down and we start moving it, you can see it's starting to get brown. That is not a brown butter. That is a combination of flour and butter and having it cooked out. Now, if you stop right here, this is a good blonde. Right now, it would be good for a blonde gravy, so a white sauce of any sort. But we're taking it further. Right now, all we are is we're on about a medium heat, and that medium heat is going to be just enough to melt that butter and keep the cooking process going. If it looks like it's happening too fast, we're going to turn our temperature down so that we don't burn this. There we go. Now, something else you're going to notice as you're cooking this down and it's getting to kind of this peanut color, you actually start to, it comes out with a little bit of a nuttiness as it browns. So you can smell that as it's cooking, and you can smell that quickly. This is a good point, if we wanted to say we have a good color. So yeah, that's a nice color here. And we're going to keep cooking this down for a few more minutes. If this was a turkey gravy, we're going to have, you have a large group of people, so you probably want to start with a full stick of butter. Okay, and remember we said a full stick of butter is a half cup. So depending on how big of a crowd you have, you're going to see I've got 2.5 cups of liquid over here, beef broth. You'll see how much that darkens and thickens into this gravy. There we go. Like I said, you don't want it sitting too long, but long enough to keep cooking down and getting that nice brown peanutty color. The aroma really is quite nice, quite lovely. Quite lovely, I must say. Obviously, we are not doing any taste testing at this point in time because you're really going to do nothing but burn it. So we've got to add our broth first and build that consistency in the gravy where we want it. Then we let it rest for a few minutes and we taste it. That's going to say how much salt we have, how much pepper we have, how much seasonings we need to add. And this is what I was saying at the beginning. If you wanted to have that robust seasoning to start with right away, add your seasoning to the flour, mix it up really well with the flour, then add it to the butter. But we're going to be adding beef broth for this exercise. But if you're doing it for a turkey, you're going to be using the drippings from the turkey. So all those turkey seasonings are going to go in the gravy. Now, this is what I want. This is the color I want. If we go any further, this is going to go chocolate. I don't want to go chocolate on this. Now watch how quickly here we go, ready? I know, I steamed out the camera. This is my 4th ladle. Okay, can set that there. Hopefully you can see that. That's my thumb. Alright, so there. Got enough liquid in here. Now, need something, Tony? No, I'm not dropping anything. Okay. Still got our gas going here. There we go. Now we've got that nice dark colored gravy that we were looking for. And what's going to happen over the next few minutes is we're going to watch it tighten up, where you actually can see the sauce becoming thicker the longer it sets. Well, we don't want to continue this to boil. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the temperature down to low. We want to let this, we don't want this boiling, we want it just warming. And that's going to allow us to go ahead and have that thicken up on its own time. Give that a stir. And you can still see here it's pretty thin. put our flour away. Our measuring spoon I'm going to set off to the side here. So as this starts to thicken up, when we give it a little bit of time to cook, bread is your medium of choice. And why is that, you say? I don't know. You know, it's the regular white bread. Well, this is a cottage white bread. It just gives you that nice cling of that gravy and just a nice medium to bring it up. Now, I'm sure the chefs in the world and the cooks in the world that want to have their own world say tell you that have yourself a spoon, because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to put the spoon in the gravy and bring it up, and if you hold it just right, you'll coat the back end of that spoon, and it's not going to run off like water. You know, that dog has been quiet all day until just the last 15 minutes. It's like she knew she needed to be part of the show. So if we take our spoon, we put it in here, that's still pretty thin. But if we wanted to taste it, it's got some good flavor already. All right. So, we have our gravy here. And as we sit and rest, this is going to tighten up. Now, if you were to say, Jeff, my gravy isn't thickening up enough. I think I needed more flour. I think I needed to run it a little bit longer. I needed to have a lighter color in my roux. I need to find a way of getting some more thickening to this without adding flour that I need to cook out of it. There's a couple things you can do. One of the things you can do is take some of the scraps of turkey in a new pan and make a new roux. Just strictly that roux, and I can show you quickly how we would do that. In fact, all you would do is grab a second pan and put it on the stove. And you're going to add a tablespoon of butter, just like this. Now it's going to be a little bit different with this. Now we only need 1 tablespoon. So 1 tablespoon of flour, and if you want to have it a little bit more than, if you're concerned, by all means. Just for kicks, we're going to add a little bit of this Meat Church Holy Cow rub. It's in the bottle. And of course, you don't need a lot. This is just, we're adding a little extra seasoning to have it carried forth. Let's not give up on our original gravy just yet. All right, so here we are in our new pan. Now, you remember what I told you about making a roux? How long do we want to let this one cook? Not long. We have our color. We have the exact color that we want. What we need is more thickening power. So we're going to take a couple minutes, minute and a half, 2 minutes, cook the flavor of the flour out, and then we're going to put it right into our gravy and watch it thicken from there. Let's say you need to add just a little bit of liquid to your all right. All right, that's cooked out. Now we're going to go ahead and add this to our gravy. And the important part here is to make sure that as you go, you're going to whisk out all those little chunks. Now look at that. Look how fast this has thickened. Now, you can't beat this. Now, since this is my house, and I'm the only one eating this gravy, if I was sharing this, I would get a different spoon. But, there you go. Look at that. See how much that's coating now? Significantly different than the first time we did this. We'll boost our temperature a little bit. I think where we're at right now is a little too thick to go to the table. But the joy of this, at this point in time, as we bring the heat up, we're going to start having that gravy thicken up even more. We still have some more broth in the back. Now we can add a little bit of broth slowly at first and get it to the consistency that we want. Now the minute we say this is the consistency that we want, and you turn it off and you're going to wait to warm it up again when dinner's ready, what you're going to find is at the time between it's ready, and you're ready to serve ready, it will have thickened up again, and you'll probably have to thin it out with a little bit more broth. So, here we go. That, you can see it's pretty thick gravy. So let's go ahead and add some more broth. Now remember, if you keep your broth hot on the back of the stove, you're going to be adding hot to hot. But if you do what I did, I didn't need to keep it hot. And I set it off to the side, it's going to cool down a little bit. At which point you're going to be looking at a cooler liquid into a warmer liquid. The warmer liquid will cool and needs to reheat up in order to continue cooking. All right, look at that. All right, now this is the point where we're going to get to tasting. You just take a little bit of that bread, let the gravy coat it, shake off any excess. Okay, so for me, this has the right amount of salt, but I am going to add some pepper to it. And again, as you add, you have to give a few minutes for anything that you add to it to mix in. It's the only way you're going to know whether you added enough or too much. Sansa. Alright, every time this comes to a boil, as it's simmering, and you give it a stir, you're going to watch that continuously thicken down. More and more and more. So we're going to turn it back down to low. And if this was going to be like, say, 30 minutes, 40 minutes before dinner, turn it off. Let it sit. There's nothing there. Give it up. Tony doesn't even care. See? Oh. You know, sometimes they just want to get your attention and keep it. If you're anything like me, you're going to want to look at that gravy, and you can see the nice coloring to it. It's clingy. Well, it's good. It's darn good. I'm going to turn this off. All right. This gravy is at the consistency that I want. Now, I'm going to let this cool. One nice thing about gravy and sauces and things like this is you can actually go ahead and make it ahead of time. So I'm going to be using the sauce tonight with my dinner. So I'm going to let it cool. I'm going to put it in a container, put it in the fridge. When I bring it back out, I'll put it back in the pan and reheat it for my tonight's dinner. You will notice that there's going to be like a dry film that, as it cools, will develop over the top of it. That's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not a big thing. It's still edible. All you do is mix it. The minute you mix it, mixes it right in. Go again. It's just a dried out layer on top to give it a little crust. But it's just gravy, man. Just mix it up again and keep going. So you can see how much gravy you get for a very small amount of butter and a very small amount of flour. But I'd say if you're doing a good 14-pound bird, I'd get your big skillet out, 14-inch skillet out if you can, so you can have a lot of liquid in there. Use a whole stick of butter. That's a half cup. Use a half cup of flour. Get it going and get that color where you want it. Some people like that turkey gravy a little bit lighter than the beef gravy. It's all about taste. Add what you're wanting. You're getting the turkey drippings adding into this. That's where a lot of your flavor's coming from. Once you've got your gravy sitting, let it sit for a bit. Dinner's not for another 40 minutes, half hour. You'll come back, leave it on the stove, give it a stir, and warm it up just before you're ready to serve. Now, someone out there needs to work on their gravy. It's rude to point out who it is. Because this roux and this gravy goes for a lot of meals. All right? Gumbo wants that really dark roux to give you that little more of that southern flavor as it comes out. But you don't have as much thickening power, which is why you're going to use things like okra and filet powder to help with thickening. If you're in that point where you think it's gone a little dark, still good, but gone a little dark, you see you can make a light blonde roux, add it in, fix it up, tighten it up where you want it, and then retaste as you go along from here. Taste every about 5-10 minutes. So if you're finding it a little thick on the salt, you got to thin it out. Rather than using your broth, use strictly water. If you have to, you can always add a few potatoes to it. That helps soak up some of that overly saltiness to it. But give yourself a chance. Make yourself that nice roux. darken it down to the color that you want it. It's not burning, it's darkening. You're going to get the nice peanut smell, and you're going to say, you know what, this is turkey gravy right here. Start adding your stock. Start adding that in there. And if you have a half stick and a half cup, you're going to add quite a bit of liquid, probably 2 full cups, just to get it to the point where you're stirring. That's okay. Turn the temperature down, let it simmer a little bit, add some more broth, and keep going. All right, now I hope this helps you out. I know from my standpoint, the biggest problem when you have a good gravy are the moochers, like me, that want to come in and try it. So, remember, once you get your gravy going, everybody's going to expect top quality the next year and the next year and the next year. All that means is you got a lot of time to practice. All right, that's it for the gravy. We'll go over this again when we do some other cooking, maybe biscuits and gravy, or maybe we'll do a gumbo soon. In the meantime, if you're using this for Thanksgiving, give yourself the opportunity to make this up, practice it a little bit, and just roll with it. Give yourself a nice, good, thick gravy, and people will love you for it. So if you like what you saw here, like and subscribe so I can keep getting these videos out to you, more tutorials, see what we can get out here, and learn the little tidbits that are going to make our food just that much better. All right? Remember, you're never out of the fight, you're never alone. You can always come here for some cooking, and Code 4 Cooking, and we'll cook together. We'll learn something new every day. All right, guys. Take care. See you soon.